Anne, thank you so much for joining us. You're the CEO and founder of the Small Business Association of Australia, and we're delighted to have you here today.
Thank you, likewise. I'm pleased to be here.
Yes, well, I mean, it's perfect because this is the Small Business Growth Series. And as the CEO and founder of the Small Business Association of Australia, I mean, you've been doing that for over 14 years now and been working in small businesses for about 30 years. What led you down this path and what led to the passion of small business?
Well, it's not only passion, but I believe in what I am doing with the association, and that's important. But what led me to was that I found that there was a high failure rate of small businesses, and that was alarming because why was this so? So I did some research and I found out that there were two things that were missing. Number one, and most importantly, our policies are all wrong. If you've got bad policy, it doesn't matter for anyone, it's not a great idea. And the other thing was that there was a lack of really good quality education to educate the small business owner. So those two are the important things. To have small business grow, develop, export, employ people, governments must create the right economic framework. That's their role. And this has not happened. There have been pocketfuls of dips and highs and so forth, but we have to have great policies and that look at what a small business needs. And so that is what compelled me and drove me to create the Small Business Association of Australia and to work on those changes.
One of the things that I know that you're really passionate about is the education and training side. Talk me through what you think is most important for education and training of small businesses.
In today's modern business world, where we are a global village, we're no longer isolated. We're a global village, a lot of competition. The small business owner must educate, inform himself or herself as to what the latest trends are, what is required, all that sort of thing. Technology is playing a major role. If the small business owner has the right technology for their business, it does improve the bottom line. So that's something that they may need to look at in times of what can help them with their small business. So they must educate themselves, and they must also educate themselves with good quality programs. What I get annoyed about is I see these, especially through Facebook, it's how to, and this is by some marketeers, or they call themselves marketeers, and that is how to make $1 squillion in 5 minutes. Now, that doesn't occur in the real world. We know if you've got a serious
It'd be nice.
It'd be nice, yeah. If you are serious about your small business, which is an asset, they must look at it as an asset. You grow it, you nurture it, you develop it, all these sorts of things. That takes time. That's a lot. And it has to be longer term.
We know they don't have the time, right? So they're wearing so many hats, and the time for things like marketing and growing your business is not something that they tend to have time for, or there is that knowledge gap as well. It's like, oh, this is too difficult to start something new and adopt it. But, you know, it is something that businesses need to do in order to survive at the moment.
It is our way of life, and I think we still have that she'll be right mentality.
Yeah, I think you're
right. And unfortunately, it's not she'll be right anymore. We don't need to be pessimistic. We need to look forward, we need to plan, but we have to be realistic. And we have to be realistic in what we do. To me, being negative, for example, is if you bury your head in the sand. But it's not being negative or pessimistic if you face reality, face the issues and act upon it. You need to seek really good advice. I would recommend you never ever seek professional advice from your friends and even business colleagues.
That's controversial.
It is controversial because my friend John, for example, he might say, Anne, you know, this is what I do, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, what he's doing could be wrong, and so you're going to do the same thing.
Or it could be right for him and his business and his vertical or his location. Unless all the stars are aligning and your situations are exactly the same, that's where, there can be big differences.
So it's like a person once said, if you're going to go to, if you need to have a tooth fixed up, you're not going to go to a plumber or a friend to fix it. You go to a professional to get it done. So you need really good advice to see what your options are and to act upon it.
And I think that one of the things that we've seen happen as well is that people shop, say, with a small business and they buy from a small business, but then they never hear from the small business again. So part of that comes down to the small business owner operator is great at what they do. So whatever product or service that they are putting out to market, they're good at delivering on that. But they're not so good at selling themselves and marketing themselves. And I think you touched on the education part being tough as well. But, the marketing piece is so important at a period where economically there's a lot of challenges. We know that Australia and New Zealand small businesses aren't making much time for things like marketing and growing their business. I think it's something like, an hour a day max is what people are spending on marketing from a time perspective. But we also know that 50% of Australia and New Zealand small businesses only have $15,000 to spend for an entire year, which is not a lot of money to go around. You really can't stretch that particularly far. So where are you seeing that, small businesses are doing a good job of spreading a thin budget?
Now, when it comes to marketing overall, and I have personally seen this, I have people, they've got great products to sell, but they haven't put the budget aside. I haven't got any money. They swap and change every 5 minutes. There's no consistency. And they wonder why they're not doing well. Because the reality is, in the marketplace, there are great, great products, inventions, whatever you want to call them. They lie dormant because of the lack of marketing. Because to invent something, for example, create something brand new, whilst it's not an easy thing, it really is the easiest part. But then to bring that particular service or product, whatever it is, out into the marketplace, that does require a budget, in some cases a big budget, and that is the thing that will make or break their particular business idea or whatever it is they're trying to bring out. So the thing is, you do need a budget, you need to plan for it, but unfortunately, some of these owners also, they are so attached to their particular product, they can't see beyond it. They think it's that in itself, whatever it is, will sell itself. And it doesn't work that way. So you've got many, many platforms you can look at. Your number one thing is you need a good website. You don't need a big one necessarily, depending on what your business is, but you need a good one. Why? Because your website is your online shop front. And you need to make it inviting, you need to make it attractive. You need to look at, if you've got good organic material in there, you don't always need to spend a fortune trying to get it listed on, in your rankings and so forth. You'll find your organic material, you've got to spend a bit of time in this area. That will help a great deal. If you don't know how to write that content yourself, of course, there are writers that will do it.
And but AI tools.
Yes, that's right, AI tools.
And they say content is king for a reason, and it does have massive impact on organic search for the website. It does,
exactly. And so then your other areas is that you need to be very, we're talking about people who've got virtually no budget now, If you've got a budget, there's so many avenues. But with a low budget, so you really do need that website of yours. If you're going to promote something on Facebook, you need to spend a couple of dollars. It's not greatly expensive, but you need to spend it and target it, which is your audience. You need to also, before you market, you need to understand who your audience is. Who are they? Where are they? So you need to target market that a lot better, and you need to prepare some sort of a marketing plan. And you can do this yourself. This is where you need to be creative.
You do. You absolutely do. And I think you touched on something really important that we talk a lot about as well, is is like social is perceived to be free. It's like, okay, I'm a small business. I don't have a lot of money. I just need to rely on social. Social is great. And we refer to it, like if we think about the party principle, we refer to social as the big party. So everyone's at it, right? Everybody's there. Email is like the after party, right? So you need contact details, though, to get invited to the after party. So when you have a good social following, you need to be gathering the contact details of those people. And a follower, on your social platform is important because they may see your message in the feed, which can be a pretty busy place to be. You're competing in a social media feed, but you don't have the contact details of that person. So you don't really own the follower, because you're at the mercy of the platform. The algorithm can change at any point in time and your messages no longer reach those people. So it's so important that you've caught the contact details. Then you've got emails, the after party, and then we refer to SMS as like the VIP party. So you're really kind of saving that for the VIPs. And a lot of small businesses that do really well from a retaining their customer base and continuing to get them to come back is that they focus on the three areas and not just one, or not just hoping that referrals will be all they need. We know that bigger business, they have obviously bigger budgets, they've got big marketing teams, lots of support, they can pay for these big expensive, partnerships and sponsorships as well, lots and lots of brand awareness. So there's a lot of competition out there, and if the small business owner isn't trying to compete, that there's a lot of noise and then they just won't be heard.
Exactly. So it's a tough gig out there for them because they have to be a Jack or Jill of all trades. But if you're going to be in business, these are the things you must do. So it's a tough gig, as I said. But as I said also, treat your small business as an asset. Grow it, nurture it, all that sort of thing. Because one day, whether you want to sell it or you want to expand or merge with somebody else, it becomes a very valuable asset. So don't just treat it as, it's just a small business. You need to treat it as something very, very valuable and important, and it is important. Because where would we be without a small business in this country? You can find them in every part of Australia, no matter how remote.
How is the new charter that's just been signed with the government? Talk me through that, and how do you think that could influence some change where it's most needed?
This is the most important reform paper that has ever been provided in this country, and I'm very proud to say the Small Business Association, my team, we drafted that document. And the intent is that there is a criteria, and the charter is neither a policy document nor is it anti-union nor anti-big business, but rather the framework in creating the right type of policies for our small business sector. Now, when we get that right, and the Charter does identify, and one of its main principles, of course, is to think small business first in the early days of when policymakers are creating policy. In other words, how will this policy, proposed new policy, how will that affect a small business? And it is suitable for all three tier levels of government. And we've got a lot of interest in that. So that's a great achievement, not only for us, but I'm very, very proud because it's great for small businesses. And that is, I suppose, one of the main things that I've wanted to see, because we will then work on other things. But you've got to start with laying the right foundations. And you start with creating the right policies, and then you can work after that.
Sounds amazing.
It is amazing.
And you absolutely have every right to feel proud of being able to achieve that, and I'm sure that you'll be able to get that to happen at a federal level as well, because there's a lot of small businesses across the country. We talked a little bit about where the marketing is the challenge though, and we know that 27% of consumers that shop at a small business, they never hear from the small business ever again. And that's challenging because the bigger businesses, they are going out of their way to entice you to hand over your contact details. There's loyalty programs, all sorts of reasons that allow them to be able to market to you. And I think some of the educating and training that we sort of try and do as well is, okay, look for the opportunities to ask people, and it's not a bad thing to ask. Like, a lot of people feel like I don't want to hassle people, but who's to say that if you're having a promotion, or you've released something new, or you're doing something, a new services that you're offering, they want to know. They actually want to hear from you.
Some do have loyalty programs, but they need to look at these things. They need to, and it depends, I suppose, on the type of business, but they need to practice customer service. That is so crucial, especially today. And for a small business owner, there are two areas. You've got customer relationships and you've got customer service that they must be mindful of. So customer service is, and you're right, about looking after your clientele base. If you are in a position to create a database, depending on the type of business, you create that, you keep in touch with them, you acknowledge them. This can be done through like a little email, like an e-newsletter, whatever it is. There are ways to to do that. It requires a bit of extra work, but that's what you need to do to be competitive. You've got to teach your staff how to give good service, how to service people.
Especially in a time where online reviews are rife, and they can really make or break a business.
Oh yes, they can.
Customer service training is essential for that reason, as well as a whole host of others. But it really can hurt the business.
Yeah, and so when it comes to this type of thing, it actually starts from the top. It doesn't start from the bottom and goes up the top.
It's got to be from the top thing.
Down.
You have to prioritise it.
Yeah, and this is where the small business owner can set good standards, good practices. They don't have to spend a fortune on expensive training programs. There are simple things that they can implement, and that is how to deal with a customer, to be courteous, to ask them how they can help a person. The staff member must become proficient and knowledgeable as to what they are selling. One thing I find is, and this is general, that small business owners could be a lot better at communicating. To me, emails, and everyday email, I think they're fantastic. Oh, the greatest thing since sliced bread. And phone calls, sometimes they just don't respond. There seems to be across the board, some are very good, but a lot aren't. And I think that's important.
There might be like this perception amongst small business, though, that people don't want to hear from them, and that's something that we need to help with educating and training as well, in terms of the fact that people genuinely do want to hear. And we're a nation, it's kind of sentimental as well, and milestones are there to be celebrated, and things like someone being a customer with you for a year, celebrating that, or knowing when it's your customer's birthday and sending an email acknowledging their birthday. These kinds of really basic forms of communication, like as a small business, they go a long way, and being able to know how to do that, though, can be the biggest hurdle. And that's where, I'm so glad we're working together. Obviously, Constant Contact and Small Business Association of Australia are working together now, because we really want to help from an education and training perspective as well, on educating small business on how to email effectively, what other forms of communication genuinely work and can genuinely help specific to small business. Like, we know what helps big business and enterprise, and my background is mostly small business, but I've worked for enterprise as well. And small businesses don't have the luxury of a $10 million budget and 100 people in a marketing team. So if you have 0 people in a marketing team and $15,000 to spend, or in some cases only $1,500, we know a lot of small businesses have as little as $1,500 as well. Email can be that tool where if it starts as little as, $15 a month, and then you can get some emails out, particularly if your list size is less than 500, you're getting these emails out and you're connecting with people. And it does a lot of that for you nowadays too. You were talking a bit about how you can just enter a few prompts. The way the technology has evolved, and we've done it for Constant Contact, is you can put your website in and say you've got an announcement and you want it to sound really, upbeat, generate, and then it generates not only an email with content for you, but an entire campaign plan. So it says, send this email today. 2 days later, do this social post. 2 days later, send an SMS. A week later, send another email. And these kinds of things then helps take out the thinking in a way, because it's like, my whole plan is there for me.
when you're in business, you need customers. And if you're a micro business, you need to get out there. You are the salesperson. The owner is the salesperson for that particular business. I know some businesses, they employ a salesperson thinking that that is their job only. But every single person in a business, from the owner down to the staff member, is a salesperson. They must be trained in that. So therefore, things like when you talk about communication, even simple things if you're sending out just ordinary emails, every day you're responding to something, even little things like have an email banner on it with your details, your address, a link to your website. And if you're offering something special, you could even have a little banner that promotes that. So when you're sending out a number of emails, that's going out to people. They may respond to it, they may not, but you're promoting yourself at the same time. So it's very, very important to get out there. The worst thing a person can say is no, thank you. I mean, so the sky hasn't fallen in, has it?
And that's feedback.
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
Isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that where the concern can come from, though, is if you don't know what your customers want. And that big question mark gives that small business owner, or even just a marketer in any business, that element of doubt is what I'm sending going to resonate? Are they going to complain and click the spam button or the unsubscribe button? But the reality is, if you are talking to your customers and you're trying to understand what's important to them, like how they want to hear from you, when they want to hear from you, like when they actually provide their details, you're getting some preferences. That's where the small business owner can go, well, they asked for the newsletter. They said they wanted the newsletter, or they don't want the newsletter, but they want to know every time I have a special or a promotion of some kind. And then that can give the small business owner that confidence. Well, they told me that from the start, so I know that's my target market for that announcement.
What I think a business person should do when they're selling, one tip, if I can use that word, is rather than say, I'm selling you something, the business owner should tell the customer, this is going to be good for you. This is the difference whatever I'm selling is going to make to you. I think that's what you've got to do, is
rather than value,
exactly,
rather than what it is.
Like some people say, look, this is the cheapest laptop, for example. People don't always care about that. Or if you say this is the very best laptop, people don't care about that, because what is best, there could be different things to different people. But rather, if you sell them that laptop, you tell them this is going to make what the difference it's going to make to their life. That's the difference that you make.
And it's the why question. So we talk, it's something that I'm really passionate about as well, is whenever there's any form of communication going out, you're asking sort of why this, why now, and why my business. And if after you've written that, you don't think that that the consumer or the customer will understand those three things, you need to go back and rethink it. Because as a small business owner operator, I imagine as well, you can get really swept up in your own business and you're thinking, well, it's obvious, isn't it? This is what I'm selling. Like, of course this is valuable. I'm a health food store. We're healthy. But it's like, but why does it matter?
Yeah, and people's needs are changing.
Yeah, they are.
You need to be aware of your demographics, and you need to be aware of what their needs are, like what is it that they're looking for. So you have to be in tune with your customers.
You have to ask questions.
You have to ask questions. You have to be in tune. And what might have worked 30 years ago doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work today. So it is a changing world, and a very rapidly changing world. And it does make it hard. But if you're going to be in business, those are the challenges you must face.
So for a small business owner operator who's just starting out, maybe they're by themselves, they're fresh, they're only 25 and they're starting their own business, all very excited. How different is it now though for this 25-year-old versus that 25-year-old 30 years ago? What are the biggest differences?
Very, very different. Years ago, you could hang your shingle, as they say, above the door with your name on it, have very little capital, if any, and you could make a go of it. You can't do it today. It's impossible. So you need finance behind you. You need to do and today you have far, far more regulation. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. So you need to do your due diligence as to what is required.
And, sometimes the reality might be cutting back on the expenses, right? So
you must do that, yes.
Yeah, and so the recent research that we conducted as well is that 55% of small businesses in Australia and New Zealand have already cut back on expenses, and 43% have had to increase their prices, and this is all due to sort of inflation.
But small businesses, where they have a problem is they can't always increase their prices. That's the bad thing. And so sometimes that's not an option.
Yeah, well,
so
that's why it's only 43%, right?
Exactly. There are new types of businesses that you might even think of yourself that nobody else has thought about. You may find a void in the market that you can supply a service. Now, the fastest growing business in Australia and around the world is the services sector. And that's a good one because you don't need masses of capital, inventory, all those things. And you know what? You can actually export your services. You can go overseas. But as long as you've got a quality service and you are proficient and you are qualified, hopefully, or you've been around a long time and you've got something very, very tangible to offer. So the services sector is something to consider, and that can usually be run even from home because today with technology, if you've got good internet connections, you can run a business. Depending again what it is, you can run it from anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It could be digital, absolutely.
That's where the technology side of it is interesting
Exciting.
and it can be beneficial. So it shouldn't be viewed as a nightmare, but it should be viewed as an opportunity.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
it
I know.
is. Well, thank you so much, Anne, for joining us in the Small Business Growth Series. It was a pleasure to have you in the seat, and thank you.
And I look forward to working closely with you. My team and I, we think you're absolutely wonderful, a wonderful organisation. And we look forward to making with you a difference to the small business owner.
I think we can do that too.
Most
Between us,
definitely.
we can do it.
Of course we can.
Thanks again, Anne.
Thank you.